Coverage of the 109th Indianapolis 500 is brought to you by Qapital. Welcome inside here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and you might notice that I'm using my inside voice because I don't want to disturb the rest of the media or anybody behind the curtain over here. But yeah, we're here taking a look at Fast Friday for the Indianapolis 500. Really exciting day of action, and action was the operative word. There was high speeds, there was dramatic crashes, and there was finally, I think, some clarity on who's got what, who's fast, who's slow, all of that stuff. So we'll talk about that all in this video, and be sure while you're there to subscribe. We really appreciate all the subscriptions that have been coming in throughout the past couple of days. We tend to think that this is the best place for Indianapolis 500 coverage, and we think you will too. So if you haven't subscribed yet, it's free. Go down there and do that. This was the first day of running with the full boost since April. Of course, in April, we did get an opportunity to see the cars run with the high boost here, the qualifying boost. It's somewhere around 60 horsepower or so. Now, there's going to be a couple of terms that you guys are going to need to know throughout this video because I've seen the comments. When I say a lap was done with a tow, what a tow is when another car is in front of a trailing car. And that draft effect, you might recognize that from NASCAR, or just the cutting of the wind, breaking of the wind, if you will, in front of the car can help speed it up and essentially create a false positive. So the way this is measured at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is if you're within 10 seconds of another car, that lap is considered to be assisted, and that assist we call a tow. So if it's a tow lap, it means it was assisted. If it's a non-tow lap, it means it was non-assisted. Is that simple enough? I hope so. What wasn't very simple today was actually a press conference that happened here today because it was very significant. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway announced that the race will sell out. It hasn't sold out yet. There's some 4-digit amount of tickets left, mostly in the North Vista. And I can tell you as someone who has sat in the North Vista since 2002, those are pretty good seats. You should buy them. But this is the first time since 2016 that there is going to be a grandstand sellout. At least at the moment, the general admission tickets are not expected to sell out, but really, really good for the race, and that also means that the local Indiana blackout will be lifted for television. So hopefully it helps the TV rating a little bit as well. And on that note, a lot of speculation kind of spurred on by the fact that Roger Penske himself invited President Donald Trump to the Indianapolis 500. Confirmed today on Twitter by a Washington, D.C. reporter by the name of Adam Wren that Donald Trump will not be attending the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500. So a lot of the concerns about getting into the track, getting out of the track, all of that stuff, we don't have to worry about it. And quite honestly, I think it's the right decision. I think you look at how Trump kind of made it about himself, and that's not necessarily a political statement, that's just how it is, at the Daytona 500. I just don't think really fits with the Indy 500. Now, would it be cool to see a sitting president someday come here and attend the Indianapolis 500? I think that would be great from that perspective, but for now, we're okay without it. The crashes today, I think that's the big story that everybody's going to be wanting to talk about. Kyffin Simpson was the first one in the wall. Hit the wall in turn 4. Actually, the car got upside down a little bit, came back down onto its wheels. He came down into the pit entrance. Really kind of a scary incident, and really the last time I can remember a car getting airborne in turn 4, you'd have to go back to Alessandro Zampedri and back in the last lap of 1996. So really odd situation there. The story on Kyffin Simpson as of right now, they did not get back out. They've had to go to a backup chassis as well as a backup engine. So essentially a brand new car for Kyffin Simpson. The good news, I suppose, if there is a good news, this is the same chassis that he shook down and tested here in April. So Chip Ganassi Racing has a car that's capable. I remember Kyffin Simpson was quite fast in that car actually in April, so it might help him out a little bit with that. Kyle Larson, this is the big story because old Kyle Larson has yet to really run a representative speed on the qualifying boost at this point, which is kind of surprising. But he went down into turn 3 on his first lap. Looked like the car bottomed out. He did a full spin, got nosed into the wall and then slid down the racetrack and got it rear nose into the wall. That's not what that is, but there is no such thing as a rear nose, but Kyle Larson found it. The good news for Kyle Larson is that the Arrow McLaren team was able to repair both the front and the rear clip of that machine. He got back out later today, but it wasn't a super productive run. It was just a shakedown. He went around 214 miles an hour, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in this video. Kyle Larson may be behind the 8-ball, and we'll talk about the situation that might unfold if he's in that last row shootout.
Just like the Indy 500 isn't won in a single lap, building wealth takes strategy and the right team. With Qapital's automated savings tools, you'll navigate every turn of your money journey and race towards your goals faster. Whether you're saving for a new car, vacation, or building an emergency fund, Qapital puts money management strategies in your pocket. Download Qapital today at qapital.com/DavidLand. That's QAPITAL.com/DavidLand.
So let's take a look at the results of today's running. First, the first page of the tow laps. Scott McLaughlin up at the top with a tow lap at 233.9 miles an hour. He was still quick without a tow. Scott Dixon in second position at 232. Alex Palou at 232. Those were unassisted, as well as Kyle Kirkwood at 232.1 and Colton Herta at 232.0. Will Power at 231.9. That was also unassisted, but these are the real stories right now. Scott Dixon up at the top of the board. He did this lap as well as the fastest 4-lap average of the day in ideal conditions. 232.5 miles an hour was his top speed. Alex Palou just behind him at a very similar 232.5. Again, he did this, both of those cars did it in the most ideal conditions that we saw. Overcast, not very hot, still a little bit gusty, but it looked good for Chip Ganassi Racing. Kyle Kirkwood continues to have a rocket ship. He did a late run that got him up to 232.1 miles an hour. Colton Herta just behind him. Both of those Andretti Global machines very, very quick. Scott McLaughlin set this lap very, very early. He only did a handful of laps today. Scott McLaughlin did 232.0 was his fastest unassisted lap. And of course, Will Power, we just mentioned him. He ran a ton earlier today at 231.9, was trying to figure out the hot and sticky, slippery conditions, and he knocks it down sixth on the board so far. Christian Lundgaard put in a late run to get up to 231.8 miles an hour. Connor Daly at 231 as well. Connor looked really good. He didn't quite put a complete 4-lap average together, but he had a really decent 3-lap average of over 230 and then had a fall off to 228 on the last lap. But Connor, I think, is a contender for the front row and possibly the first 2 or 3 rows. Marcus Armstrong, in fact, the 2 full-time Meyer-Shank cars didn't even go out till late in the day, so Marcus Armstrong at 231.5, just 1 or 2 runs for Marcus Armstrong, and he was in the barn. Stingray Robb in the top 10, so the Juncos Hollinger cars have a lot of qualifying speed. Felix Rosenquist just behind him, kind of the sandwich of the Juncos and Meyer-Shank cars. Takuma Sato just behind him. He finally got his engine up to snuff, and at 231 miles an hour is easily the fastest of the Rahal machines. Robert Schwartzman is legit, 1,000% legit, and I levied a lot of criticism at Prema early on in the month, but he has just looked fantastic so far. Robert Schwartzman, I think, is a contender for that Fast 12, if not that Fast 6. Christian Rasmussen just behind him. The Ed Carpenter Racing team looked good, at least for Rasmussen and Carpenter in 14th and 15th. We'll talk about what the ominous missing Ed Carpenter driver here in just a second. Joseph Newgarden drew 31st position in the qualifying draw. Not all that great for Joseph, but I think he's still going to be pretty fast. Louis Foster, the next Rahal car on the list in P17, 230.9 miles an hour. Marcus Ericsson is further down the board on the no-toes in 18th, but he was first in the qualifying draw, so he'll get ideal conditions. David Malukas continues to look pretty solid in the AJ Foyt Racing team. Elio Castroneves is a little bit further down the board than I think he would want, as well as Marco Andretti, although Marco set that 230.5 in pretty difficult conditions, so I think all the Andretti cars are pretty solid. Pato O'Ward is second in the draw tomorrow. He'll be second out to qualify. He did a 230.4, and that was really a lap that was really, really solid. I think they only did one run, so they look very confident. Rinus VK is absolutely dead last in the draw, 34th position. At 230 miles an hour, though, that's a pretty safe speed. Santino Ferrucci told Fox Sports that he was pretty confident in his machine, so look out for that. Alexander Rossi didn't break the 230 mile per hour barrier today. A little bit worried about that. Jacob Abel spoke to him a little bit after practice. He seems pretty happy with his car at 229.6. Graham Rahal is pretty much the opposite. Very much not happy right now. That 229.5 was set in ideal conditions, and we'll see what happens with Graham Rahal. But this all feels very, very familiar at this point. Ryan Hunter-Reay did a couple of early runs at 229.3, but really didn't run all that much today. Ryan Reinbold definitely focusing on saving their equipment. Devlin DeFrancesco further down the order, although he ran in bad conditions, so that might not be super representative. Nolan Siegel did a lot of running today and didn't find a lot of speed, to be quite honest with you, at 229.0. Jack Harvey, again, like the Dreyer and Reinbold teammate of Hunter-Reay, he ran early and didn't run much after that. Callum Ilott at 228.9 isn't a great no-toe speed. There's no doubt about it. Certainly not anywhere near what Robert Schwartzman, his teammate, is doing. And Kyle Larson at 214 miles an hour, that was just a shake off the rust, shake off the fear run, but he has still not run a representative speed with the qualifying boost. And of course, Kyffin Simpson crashed on his out lap, and there's really nothing that we can take from that. So, battle for the pole position tomorrow, as well as essentially we're going to set the four drivers who will either miss the show or make the show on Sunday. I still think Team Penske's outright the fastest. I think Scott McLaughlin is the odds-on favorite for the pole, although he's further down in the qualifying draw than I think he would have liked. But again, with the way the qualifying format works here now, you really just have to be in the Fast 12, and you're going to have a shot at the pole. And then once you get in the Fast 12, all you have to do is be in the Fast 6, and then you're really, really in with a good shot. I don't think Penske's quite as dominant as they were last year. Definitely think they have a little extra in the tank, especially because they didn't really run in the ideal conditions this evening. But if you look at Ganassi, you look at Andretti, you look at Schenck, I think those cars, as well as Juncos, as well as a few of the Ed Carpenter cars, Pato O'Ward, you start to add all them up and you get to a pretty solid Fast 12 there. I think it's going to be competitive for the pole. I think if anyone isn't a Team Penske car and is on the front row of the pole, I think it's going to be Kyle Kirkwood. He's just looks so fast. But it looks like Colton Herta is close, if not right there with Kyle Kirkwood. There's really no easy bump this year, and that's where this is going to get really, really interesting, because even Graham Rahal, who maybe hasn't shown outright speed, certainly hasn't thrown it away. He hasn't put it in the wall. He hasn't caused himself any extra headache than just the fact that he's slow. And that sounds bad to say it that way, but there are some drivers who are having significant headaches tonight, and they weren't just slow, they crashed. And so you think about Kyffin Simpson, complete unknown now. Maybe not a complete unknown. He ran this car here in April. He ran it very quickly. So as long as the car can be prepared well enough to get into the top 30 tomorrow, he will be okay. But you've got an awful lot of unknowns with that car. You've got to shake it down. You've got to see if you've got the feel, and then you've got to try to put it in the show. It's going to be very difficult for Kyffin Simpson. And Kyle Larson. Now this is super, super important, because he has crashed both times. I guess not the third time, but the first two times he ran on the qualifying boost, he crashed the car. We did a little bit of hunting today. Kyle, my camera guy, actually brought up a really good point, and this was before Kyle Larson crashed. He said, you need to ask when Kyle Larson needs to leave. And I said, really? He's like, if he's in the bottom four, when does he have to leave? And so I asked the question, and I got a great answer. All good. We love freedom of information, and found out from the team that Kyle Larson has to leave at 5:40 p.m. That is the latest he can leave to go to North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race. Now the bottom four qualifying starts at 5:10. So if Kyle Larson is in the bottom four, you better hope he's 31st. because otherwise, and you better hope 31st doesn't crash if he's not, because he might not get an opportunity to qualify for this race. And you might be saying, well, what about Tony Kanaan? He did his refresher test. He's ready to go. He could qualify that car. Well, the rules have changed. If Tony Kanaan gets in that car at any point past his refresher, Tony Kanaan is officially the driver of the number 17 Ferrari McLaren, and Kyle Larson cannot get back in. So that's going to be really, really something that if Kyle Larson doesn't make it tomorrow, that's become a massive, massive storyline, and something that I think a lot of people haven't thought about yet. But you should start thinking about it, because it could potentially be a very, very big story. And then let's really throw an odd possibility out there. What if it's so important to the sponsors of that car, the partners of that car, to put it in the race anyway? What if Tony Kanaan qualifies it and races it next Sunday? Interesting things. A few other names that I'm looking at as potential trouble right now. Nolan Siegel, I mentioned him a little bit. The speed just didn't seem to be there. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know exactly what it is, but the speed's not there yet for Nolan Siegel. The two Dry and Reinbold cars, it's hard to tell what's exactly going on there. Again, they ran so early and in conditions that weren't ideal that I'm not super duper worried about them, and it kind of shows a little bit of confidence that they have in their program, that they were able to go out and feel confident and not go back out again. So I don't know. And then the final name I'm going to throw out there, and there could be some gamesmanship being played, there's no doubt about it, but Alexander Rossi couldn't break the 230 mile per hour barrier today, did an awful lot of qualifying run attempts, and just didn't look comfortable. And sometimes when you see that, you got to believe what you're seeing with your lion eyes. And Dale Coyne Racing, it looks like Rinus VeeKay is pretty solid right now. I think Jacob Abel might be borderline, but I think he's probably more like a row 10, row 9 car right now. I don't necessarily think it's trouble for the 51 car just yet. And if Dale Coyne could get both cars into this show, I think it would be really, really good for them, because obviously they missed it last year. And so that's kind of my thoughts for now on that. History segments, as always, brought to you by gutswearracing.com. They have a trailer out there. I'm sure the trailer's a little bit soggy right now, but you can also go to gutswear.com and get your shirts, diecast, t-shirts, all that good stuff. Check them out. They've been an awesome help this month sponsoring our history segments, because we can do things like talk about former winners of the Indianapolis 500. And it was 70 years ago that we lost Bill Vukovich. And we talked about Bill Vukovich in our repeat winners of the Indianapolis 500 video. But Vuki is one of the best drivers to ever race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I think more people need to know the story of the Mad Russian. The 50s, steel tube frames, sleek and bold designs powered by loud, brash, four-cylinder Offenhauser engines mounted in the front of the car. This was Indianapolis in its golden age. The 1950s saw a booming economy, Americana at its finest, and in 1950 would see a quiet rookie make his first attempt at Indy. Bill Vukovich was an unassuming yet determined character. He was the son of Yugoslavian immigrants, one of 8 children who came from humble beginnings in Fresno, California. After impressing on the dirt tracks around the country, Vuki made his first appearance at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And while he failed to qualify in his first attempt in 1950, his maiden 500 also proved to be a disappointment in 1951, dropping out after only 29 laps with a suspected oil leak. By 1952, Vuki would find a much more reliable ride that would suit his style at Indy. Team owner Howard Keck fielded Vukovich in a Curtis Craft, a low-slung, rear-drive, front-engine car that Vukovich had claimed looked like one of his old roadsters, thus forever coining the name for the new style of Indy machines. Despite the car not being ready for a run for the pole, he set a new qualification record at 138 miles per hour. His speed was undeniable. He went on to lead 150 of the 200 laps, schooling the field until a mechanical failure stole his first victory. The next year, 1953, saw extreme heat. The scorching conditions forced many to sub out for relief drivers as temperatures rose well above 91 degrees. Vukovich needed no such relief, leading an astonishing 195 of the 200 laps and winning by a margin of over 3 minutes in only his third Indianapolis 500 attempt. In 1954, the road to victory seemed rough at best for Vukovich. In the same car he won the race with in 1953, he struggled to find speed all month, and despite questions, he stuck with his trusty roadster and qualified a shocking and disappointing 19th. But on race day, in a valiant drive, he muscled the machine through the field to take the lead on lap 92. Vukovich would never look back and scored a back-to-back victory in the Indianapolis 500, only the third driver at the time to master the Speedway in that way. Vukovich returned to the Speedway in 1955 in pursuit of a third Indy win in a row, driving a new state-of-the-art roadster. He qualified fifth but charged to the front and led 50 of the first 56 laps. But as we spoke about in a previous video, fate always seems to intervene at Indy when a record third consecutive win is on the line. And this time, fate was cruel. While attempting to avoid the crash of Roger Ward on the backstretch, he veered to the right, made contact with the outside wall, and catapulted over it. Vukovich suffered fatal injuries in the crash. The Brickyard lost a champion. A hush came over the Speedway. Vukovich, the twice defending winner, had lost his life. And although his career was cut short some 70 years ago, his legend will forever echo through the grandstands of the Coliseum of Speed. Bill Vukovich was certainly a gladiator in the golden era. And I think something that's super interesting about, and an interesting connection between some of those drivers who have won 2 Indianapolis 500s in a row. If you remember the Maserati that Wilbur Shaw won the 39 and 40 race in, that was the first car in 1950 that Bill Vukovich attempted to qualify for the Indianapolis 500 in. What a hell of a connection, huh? Isn't that cool? Day one of qualifying tomorrow. Essentially, it's the new bump day, but it isn't. But it is. I don't know. I still don't. We need to work on the naming convention with the qualifying days. There's no doubt about it. But it's going to be a dramatic day tomorrow. There is no doubt about it. There's going to be a lot of surprises. We haven't seen everything that this Speedway is going to show us. There is no doubt there. And of course, this is going to be the best place, I hope, to discuss it when it's all said and done. It just rained cats and dogs. There's no rubber on the racetrack. We're expecting gusty winds but lower temperatures tomorrow. Good for speed, but also very dangerous. We're looking forward to seeing what will happen tomorrow. We know it's going to be exciting, and we'll be here to break it down for you when it does. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.